Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The first test for this budget was whether people are going to be better off or worse off as a result of it. The Chancellor has failed in his first test because the OBR forecast and analysis delivers a damning verdict. In the executive summary, it talks of how real household income is due to fall by 5.7% in the next 2 years, the largest two-year fall since records began in 1956-57, with living standards lower than pre-pandemic levels, even up to 2027-28. There was no mention of support for mortgage prisoners in this, and the Chancellor missed a chance to end non-dom tax status, which could have helped fund an expansion of the workforce in the NHS. His pledge for potholes, Madam Deputy Speaker, all very well, except that the issue is that the highways maintenance budget that was cut in 2021 by 400 million would have been enough to fill 8 million potholes. And there's good progress on childcare, on prepayment meters, on supporting over 50s back to work, but all of that has been playing catch-up with where Labour has been. Now, my starting point is optimism and ambition for what Britain can become, and how we can rebuild our economy and restore our reputation for trust around the world after the devastating damage particularly done by the mini-budget last September. But this needs a serious plan for stability and growth that commands confidence and makes Britain the best place to invest and to start or grow a business. We know that government working in partnership with industry is what will help British businesses to be thriving, growing and investing if we are to ever achieve any of our goals. Whether that's making all parts of the country better off or getting on track for net zero, the investment that businesses undertake to develop products and services, increase productivity, create jobs, that investment is the most crucial ingredient. But the challenge we have here in the UK is that business investment has been lagging for years, caused by 13 years of Tory failure. This was a problem before the pandemic, before the war in Ukraine, and it's making it much harder for us to recover from those shocks today. A consequence of the low growth, low productivity and high tax economy that this government has created. And the continual chopping and changing of government policies and priorities have made our economy less stable and contributed to falling living standards, falling business confidence and falling consumer confidence. In this context, let me speak to the budget, Madam Speaker, that's in front of us today, and what a missed opportunity. We needed to see a strong, serious industrial policy framework for the long term that businesses can trust and that can bring clarity, consistency, stability and certainty, even more so in the uncertain world that we face. But today's budget did not even come close, which is not surprising, as the government has spent the last few years watering down its industrial strategy and hoping nobody will notice. Well, the only E here today, Madam Deputy Speaker, was everything but a serious plan. And what a contrast with Labour's clear strategic missions and priorities for the British economy and our goal of securing the highest sustained growth in the G7. Now, what we have seen today is little more than tinkering around the edges, more sticking plaster politics and more attempts at short-term fixes, with a handout for the richest 1% slipped in. This budget falls way short of the wider plan for green growth that our businesses and communities have also been calling for. The Chancellor announced a £20 billion investment over 2 decades to create carbon capture technologies, but as ever, this is yet another poor imitation of Labour policy. But there wasn't nearly enough. Last September, over 200 leading businesses and financial institutions wrote to the Prime Minister then, saying they were committed to protecting and restoring nature and delivering a net zero economy in support of the UK's targets, with delivery mechanisms strengthened across the whole of government. The steps announced today are yet again a poor imitation of where Labour has been, and it has taken the SSMT to also say that there is little that enables the UK to compete with the massive packages of support to power a green transition that are available elsewhere. Now, small businesses should also be part of this transition to a green economy. Roundtables I'm doing with small businesses across the country have shown how much they need to be central to our plans for growth. But all we seem to see from the government is a record of failure and a lack of ambition. And the FSB said today that the distinct lack of new support in core areas proves that small business and small firms are overlooked and undervalued. The latest ONS data available on business desks shows that business desks have outweighed business bursts for 7 consecutive quarters running. And even schemes set up by the government to help small businesses grow are falling short. The government's Help to Grow Digital was billed as the government's flagship small business productivity policy, but a year after it running, the government pulled the plug in February because of low take-up. And when I recently asked the Minister what programmes were available to SMEs looking to transition to net zero, he cited the boiler upgrade programme. But the scheme's own impact assessment says that the impact of this scheme for small businesses is negligible. The latest data released from the scheme shows that 0.4% of all installations in the scheme have been for SMEs. So the evidence is clear. The government is simply not serious about helping SMEs transition to net zero or supporting them at all. So in conclusion, Madam Deputy Speaker, if the government was serious about supporting small businesses as well, they would back Labour's plan to help Britain become a clean energy superpower by 2030 and provide 0.7 billion in help to green grants for SMEs. The lack of long-term shift in the Chancellor's statement today has left us with the usual sticking plaster politics. This is the natural end result of what happens when you spend 13 years hollowing out public services and not investing in workers and businesses, and having a tired government that's run out of ideas.
Yeah.